Characteristics of least developed countries. Now, what are least developed countries? These countries have economic vulnerabilities. They have very weak human resource. They have human resource development. They have also very low levels of education. So these are the different characteristics of least developed countries. Let's write for each point. Let us write few points. One, these countries have they have low income. So I'm expecting you're making notes alongside me, right? Human resource weakness. And third, they have other economic vulnerabilities. Other economic vulnerabilities, right? So what are the different characteristics? So in case if we are going to divide them into several, first are economic characteristics. Among economic characteristics, you have two. One, low income levels. And high poverty rates. Right. And the another one is the dependence on agriculture, a huge dependence on agriculture, right? For example, this dependence on agriculture. And primary sectors. Primary sectors. So you have countries like Niger, which has very low GNP per capita of just $460 in 2020. And it also has very high poverty rate, which is 42.7% in 2019, according to the World Bank report. Then you have Bangladesh, again, low per capita income, 1350 in 2020. And the poverty rate is lower, around 20.5%. You have the example of Haiti. It had the GNP per capita of $820, but the poverty rate of staggering 59%. And then you compare it with the developed countries, for example, US. So US has the almost very high GNP per capita of $65,850 in 2020, and it has very low poverty of around 11.4% in 2019, according to the World Bank report. So you can give few examples. So examples like Haiti, right? It had the GNP per capita of $820 in 2020. And it had the poverty rate of 59% in 2019. Then you have the country like Bangladesh. These are few examples which you can just write in your answer. So Bangladesh had the GNP per capita of 1350 in 2020. And it had the poverty rate of of approximately 20.5% in 2019. And then you have Niger, an example from Africa. It had the GNP per capita of $460 and the poverty rate of 42.7% in 2019, right? And then if you look at dependence on agriculture and the other primary sectors, you'll find is that many of these countries, they rely heavily on agriculture in the primary sector. For example, Malawi. It relies heavily on agriculture, and agriculture contributes around 30% of its GDP, right? And also it's employing a huge proportion of population in Malawi in agriculture. Then Cambodia. Cambodia also has a very large agricultural sector and very large agricultural sector. And rice is the main export. Rice is the main export. You have the country from Africa, for example, Mozambique. Mozambique, right? Again, it has the substantial agricultural sector, and it is the major export commodities are cashew nuts, right, and cotton. So these are the evidences which we are trying to give that they are heavily dependent on agriculture, right, and the primary sector. So in the other recording in tomorrow's class, maybe I'll also tell you that you cannot just put these countries in the homogeneous set, that all countries are similar. Some countries, even the LDCs, they have relatively higher income, but they have very low human development. Or some countries may have relatively low income, but they have very high human development. And the other is, and some countries may be, even though they are LDCs, but they are dependent more on industry. So it is not the homogeneous set of countries, one, right? Second point, beta. Social characteristics. Social characteristics. So among social characteristics, you can say there are two main things which we want to write about. One, these countries, they have a high population growth. And youth dynamics. While the other countries such as these, they have limited other social characteristic is limited access to education and healthcare. Limited access to education and healthcare. For example, a country like Ethiopia, it had a huge population growth of around 2.4%, and but it has a huge population which is under 25. So it's a huge youth population. So Ethiopia. So 2.4% population growth and a significant population which is below 25 years of age. Then a country like Timor-Leste. it had the high population growth of around 2.3%. And a large population of its population is also comprising of young people, right? Bolivia, you have a country from South America, and it had the huge population growth of around 1.5%. Again, a sizable youth population. But then if you compare it with the developed countries, you'll find this that Germany, Japan, etc., they have very low population growth, very low population growth. And now the demographics are that they have huge dependent population, old population, elderly population, right? Then you have limited access to education and healthcare. Limited access to education and healthcare. For example, for countries like Chad, now, again, this is the least developed country in Africa. Among the different least developed countries in Africa, this is one of them. And it faces challenges in providing quality education, right? And the healthcare services. And it has very low literacy, right? And poor healthcare. And poor healthcare. Then you have countries like Afghanistan, right? Afghanistan. And this country also has very low literacy, particularly among women, right? And they are not able to provide the quality healthcare services to their population. Low literacy. Particularly among women. And they are not able to provide the quality healthcare services also. And then you have the country from South America, Guyana, right? Guyana, sorry. Again, it has a very low literacy rates and the same thing. It is not able to provide the universal healthcare and quality education to the other countries. And now, if you compare to their entire population, if you compare this with US and Canada, you'll find this that they have, of course, a very good education system, and they're able to provide the universal healthcare also, right? Then you have the countries. Then the other characteristics are the political characteristics. Political characteristics. So among political characteristics, there are two things which we want to write about. One is political instability. Most of these countries, they have very unstable government, and the governance challenges also corruption. Political instability. And governance challenges, right? And the another problem is the limited political representation and inclusivity. Limited political representation and inclusivity. Limited political representation and inclusivity. An example like Democratic Republic of Congo, DRC, Democratic Republic of Congo, you have political instability there. And the governance challenges are also there due to conflicts, due to internal conflicts and the weak institutional structure. So governance challenges are due to, one, you have political instability. Right. Plus, governance challenges are due to your conflicts. And weak institutions. Myanmar is the another example. So it also faced political instability. We have just recently seen that there is a periodic military intervention in Myanmar in the political affairs. So that is also the problem. Periodic military intervention. Right. Example like Haiti. It also has faced frequent government changes and the weak governance structure. Frequent government changes. You have to write complete lines, right? So I've just explained and I've just written it like this: periodic military intervention in political affairs. Right. And then you have the another problem is there is very weak inclusive structure. There is very weak or limited political representation. For example, Sudan. Sudan also has, I mean, this is the problem. I mean, they have very, very weak government, and whatever government they have also, uh, the representation is not proper. So uh, Sudan. Political representation is not inclusive. Not all groups are included. That is the problem. Nepal. Now, Nepal is working towards inclusive government, right? It is working towards including the ethnic groups also. Uh, it is working towards including um, ethnic minorities, and women. Bolivia. Also here also the steps are taken to improve the political representation, right? Uh, are taken to improve political representation, and so that there is diversity in the political leadership also. So these are the different characteristics of the least developed countries. We have divided it into economic characteristics, social characteristics, and these guys, your political characteristics. You can also include the cultural characteristics, right? So most of these least developed countries, they have very wide cultural diversity, which is a positive point. But then again, they are also facing challenges in keeping their traditions alive, in keeping their cultural traditions alive. That is also one of the things which is there. So I hope this was of some use to you. Although I have written the points, but I have not written the complete lines. You will have to write the complete lines yourself. The main point is that you should be able to make notes side by side. The more notes you will make, the better is going to be your understanding. Make this thing absolutely clear in your head. So whatever you write with your own hands, it will be there in your mind for a larger amount of time. And you can also revise it. You can't watch videos again and again. So you will have to write it somewhere. Please write alongside. Right. Thank you, Vedite. I hope it was of some use to you. Thanks.